as we light our chalice flame today, as chalice flames are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world, we will hear words from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river. For with our shared force, we can travel toward oceans of meaning and seas of connection. Welcome. Welcome to this meeting house today, physically closed but spiritually open to all in these strange times. Now, good manners dictate that a minister never focuses on themselves in the service. However, I'm going to break that rule for a brief moment. Today is a celebration day for me, but perhaps not being celebrated in quite the way I might have planned when the page of the year turned in January 2020. Today, the first Sunday in September, I record 10 years as the minister of this congregation in Sevenoaks, and 5 years as the minister to Tenterton and to Dover. I had planned cake for all those places, but I can't eat it all myself, and I will have to wait until when we can gather together once more. Let's hope not too far away. Now, the current closure of some of those meeting houses across the country, and many meeting houses do remain closed, does reshape my reflection on these milestones. They're drops in the ocean, given the strength, time, and history of our congregations. 304 years people have gathered here. A similar but slightly less time in Tenterton. The building at Dover has its 200th anniversary this year, although the congregation has been meeting since around 1648. These anniversaries of congregations, they're an immense period of time. We are each part of a changing continuum, bigger than any of us. Yet we are each a part of it, and decisions and actions we take are part of that longer story. This time is yours to reflect, to take time away, to look into your deeper self. This time and this space are yours. Welcome to this place today. Our first reading is a piece by the Reverend Robert Walsh. Now, Robert sadly died about 4 years ago, but I was very pleased to meet him and grateful to meet him around 14 years ago when he came and stayed in Britain for a while. He was a Unitarian Universalist minister, but he came and stayed in Britain in Horsham, and he took services in Horsham, and he also, I believe, took 1 or 2 here in Sevenoaks as well at the time. This is a piece from Robert's collection of readings called Stone Blessings, and this is In the Soup. My dictionary says the word minister is etymologically related to the word minestrone. I'm not making this up. They're both derived from a Latin root that means to serve. The image of ministry as minestrone is particularly apt for the ministry church people do all together that makes a ministering congregation. Each bean, each vegetable, each unit of macaroni or pinch of spice gives not only its substance to the soup, but also its spirit, its texture, its colour, its flavour, its aroma. Each person offers a unique set of gifts. And if we do our job of organising well, so that the whole becomes creatively matched with a need, we become warm, nourishing, life-giving religious community. All who serve the church and the principles and values we hold dear are ministers. If you're doing part of that work, you are doing ministry, no matter how unlikely it may seem. You are in the soup, the minestrone of ministry. The words of Robert Walsh. Let us join together in a time of prayer. Let silence be placed around us like a mantle. Let us enter into it as though through a small secret door, stooping to emerge into an acre of peace where stillness reigns and the mystery is ever present. Eternal Spirit, help us to descend into the depths of our being, below our conscious and subconscious life, until we discover our real selves, that which is given to each of us alone, the divine likeness in which we are each made and into which we are to grow. The place where we might commune, the spring from which all our lives arise. Eternal Spirit, Mother, Father, ever present if only we have eyes to see, we stand in awe in the presence of the universe. In its proper time, may the mystery unfurl before us. Though fettered by our material desires, may the depths of the Spirit uphold and guide us. May the great gifts of the earth sustain us. May the universe forgive our faults and our follies, and may we in equal measure be forgiving. May we ever turn our eyes toward the light, to dispel the darkness which would engulf us. We give thanks for the bounty of the universe, which abounds with power and glory beyond our greatest imaginings. If you wish to, you may wish to follow the words of the final prayer, which will be shown on your screens. Eternal Spirit, may we be led from death to life, from falsehood to truth. May we be led from despair to hope, from fear to trust. May we be led from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. Amen. Our second reading is a poem. It's a poem by the Hull librarian, the late Philip Larkin. This is from Larkin's collection, The North Ship. And this piece is The North Ship. I saw 3 ships go sailing by, over the sea, the lifting sea, and the wind rose in the morning sky, and one was rigged for a long journey. The first ship turned toward the west, over the sea, the running sea, and by the wind was all possessed, and carried to a rich country. The second turned toward the east, over the sea, the quaking sea, and the wind hunted it like a beast, to anchor in captivity. The third ship drove towards the north, over the sea, the darkening sea. But no breath of wind came forth, and the decks shone frostily. The northern sky rose high and black over the proud, unfruitful sea. East and west the ships came back, happily or unhappily. But the third went wide and far into an unforgiving sea, under a fire-spilling star, and it was rigged for a long journey. The words of Philip Larkin. Our hymn today, at this time of beginnings, always change and beginnings, of being forever on the edge of something new, recalling Robert Walsh's thoughts on our collective work toward the holy, and of Philip Larkin's ship headed into the long journey. This is "To you who would as pilgrims go." Wonderful words by the Minister Emerita of Haverhill Unitarians in Massachusetts, Janet Bowring. This is number 177 in the Purple Book, if you have one. But the words will be on the screen. To you who would as pilgrims go. I have a guilty secret. We did, as a family, manage to get away from Sevenoaks for a few days this summer. Our holiday was spent, as it has been for several years now, near the town of Southwold in Suffolk. And we've been going for many years, and we're able to quickly click back into the rhythm of the town. Now our daughters are now old enough to be left to their own devices for some of the time, and the opportunity to walk into town, an entire one-way pedestrian marvel this year, was an absolute pleasure. Perhaps not surprisingly, I made my way, as I have many times before, to the stunning church of St Edmund on the top of it's sort of the highest point of Southwold, where I intended to sit outside. This year is different, of course, and just marvel at the ancient structure and the beautiful windows. The windows are plain glass, and the light coming in, the Suffolk light moving through that place, is just phenomenal. Now, it's strangely fortunate that the church is still there at all. When Daniel Defoe visited the town in the late 17th century, he discovered just 27 regular attenders in the gigantic church. And the remaining townspeople, some 800 or so at that time, were dissenters. They were at the forefront of religious change and, as was common at that time, radical European politics. But as it happened, St Edmund's congregation survived, while the rest, Methodists excepted, have now all but disappeared. There is even an old Unitarian church, which is now a holiday cottage rentals shop. But the Unitarian church in Southwold, long gone, I'm afraid. But in any case, my hope for peace and tranquility was somewhat shattered when no sooner had I reached the church that I saw that the whole of one side was clad in scaffolding, for some no doubt necessary maintenance, and work was underway, and it was very busy and it was very noisy. Now, the same was in the case of the village of Wangford, just outside Southwold. There the church was covered in scaffolding and work was underway. But the Church of England doesn't take the monopoly here. Our own Unitarian church in Dover spent much of this summer under scaffolding, having essential repairs made all around. We've refurbished gutters, we've repainted wood, we've replaced structures. I say we. It was people that knew what they were doing, it wasn't me. But readying for the next stage in the journey of the church. Now, it was when I was pondering on the need for these works that the all too obvious but oft forgotten point was brought home. We love our churches and our meeting houses, but we're not finding peace in the same place that brought people to God or the sacred for hundreds of years. Same location, much of the same fabric, but without constant care and attention, the building would have fallen long ago into ruin, just as this meeting house would. Where did the electric lights come from? They weren't here when it was built. And the heating system, and the 20th century books, and the new kneelers, and the plugs for this camera. Everything moves on and changes and adapts. These much-loved places are not relics of the past. They're a continuation of something that has been present for many years, and yet they have recognised and responded to change over that time. In terms of the fabric of the building, this is necessary change. Change that enables the church to continue, the congregation to have a place to meet. It may look the same, but it's in fact moved with the times, and it continues to move with the times. And it's not just the building, it's the congregation. It's you moving with the times, changing and flexing. As an aside, I recently discovered that those wonderful clear glass windows that I mentioned in St Edmund's in Southwold were in fact Victorian replacements for the earlier stained glass, which no one had looked after and had deteriorated completely. It changed. Now, as Unitarians, we know all about continuity and change. My decade of ministry here, my 5 years with Tenterton and Dover, is a change. Hopefully a nice change, but it's important to remember that this is but one further step for the congregation. It may be 10 years, that sounds a very long time to some, it doesn't sound very much at all to others, but in the 304 years of this meeting house, it's not that much. And I'm by no means the first minister here, and I have every hope that I won't be the last minister here. There is a list in the vestibule of the ministers that have served this church, and it's very long. But it's not as long as that list that's often overlooked, despite its essential nature. The list of congregation members at this meeting house and all those around us will be far longer than any list of ministers. And churches do not survive without congregations. Whereas ministers, now in our first reading, we heard how Robbie Walsh remarks that the word minister is etymologically related to the word minestrone. Now it's true, both derive from that Latin root to serve. And he went on to remark that the image of ministry as minestrone is particularly apt, for the ministry we all do together makes us a ministering congregation. Each bean, each vegetable, each piece of macaroni or pinch of spice not only gives substance to the soup, he says, but also its spirit, its texture, its colour, its flavour, its aroma. And each person offers a unique set of gifts. And if we do our job of organising well, each gift will be matched with a need. Now, all who serve this church, all who serve all those churches, those Unitarian churches out there, and those of other denominations, but particularly in the Unitarian that I'm speaking, of course, the principles, the values we hold dear, bring us all as ministers in some way. We are all doing ministry, no matter how unlikely that may seem. We are all in the soup, the minestrone of ministry. So we're all ministers, and so were our predecessors in our meeting houses and our churches. From the General Baptists of Sevenoaks and Dover and Chatham and Horsham to the Presbyterians of Maidstone and Tenterton, we come from dissenting, changing, morphing stock. And it's not always been easy. And importantly, we can truly say that the thinking and the approach of our congregations has developed and grown with society, even influencing society itself at times. We are not rigid. We change, we flow. Now, we have changed. We have adapted and we have evolved to survive. We continue to change. We have to. Unfortunately, and fortunately, it's in our DNA, both in fact as humans and most certainly as Unitarians. Now, change is inevitable, except, as Stephen Fry once remarked, from a vending machine. But otherwise, we are always facing change. And as Unitarians, we are equipped for change. We're not bound to a series of liturgical styles of orders of worship. We've changed and we continue to do so. This move to YouTube for the duration of lockdown, for however long this might need to go on for, in some form, maybe with a balance of meeting together again in buildings, is a change. It's adapting to the needs and the requirements of the time. For Unitarians, it's the importance of now, rather than simply the past or even the future. But all of this requires a congregation. Now, it was one of the Desert Fathers, the very early Christian teachers, St. Macarius of Egypt, who noted that the will of man is an essential condition, for without it, God does nothing. Now, we'll excuse the sexist language of the will of man. The will of humans is an essential condition, for without it, God does nothing. And for our movement, one that itself emerged from that Christian tradition, I think that's a fairly profound statement. Without human will, the sacred does nothing. We are the vehicle to deliver the present and the future. Now today, I'm proud to be the continuing minister at Dover, at Sevenoaks, at Tenterton. Yet I know that the next 10 or 5 years will not be the same as the previous, nor should they be. Things will change. In particular now, work over recent weeks and over weeks to come in looking at how we operate perhaps a mixed economy of online and physical presence will not be straightforward. It will not be easy. Yet it is part of that change. It will be hard. It will be new territory. We may not each get what we want as individuals. Yet by working together in a positive frame of mind and mutual support, we can make the difference. And we can be the change we need to be, both here in our meeting houses and our churches, and in the wider world. Now, in our second reading today, Philip Larkin told us of 3 ships. The first ship, heading west, had an easy voyage and found life very simple, and the adventure was missing. The second, heading east, did not get very far at all. With the wind battling its every move, it quickly ground to a halt. But the third ship, facing neither easy pickings nor immediate failure, had perhaps the most interesting future. It was rigged for the long journey, and the North ship steadied itself for an adventure into the unknown. Prepared for challenges, ready to face the uncertainty, maybe the North ship best describes the way we will wish to be as individuals, as congregations, as part of this wonderful Unitarian movement, as we enter the next step on our journey of ministry together. As those words from Leslie Takahashi in our chalice lighting earlier put it, we gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's services and ruts. Here we pool together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river. For with our shared force, we can travel towards oceans of meaning and seas of connection. We here are continuing the traditions of our forebears, of dissenting free thinkers everywhere. But we're not resting on their laurels. A congregation, a religious community is its people, not its buildings, nor its creeds, or of course its non-creeds. We can learn from our past, but not repeat it. May we each embrace the change that lies ahead. Let us come together in a time of stillness and reflection. As we settle our bodies, perhaps closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. I shall speak some words, and I shall strike the singing bowl, and we shall come together in stillness and quiet together. That stillness will be broken with music, where we continue our reflection. As we settle our bodies, focusing on our breath, with some words by Alice Walker. The people come to church to share God, not to find God. They come to church to share God, not to find God. Some closing words. Spirit of life, we give thanks for your presence, for light and for love, for night and for change. Our worship is over, but our service continues. As we depart from this space, may there be peace among us all, now and forever.